We've also had, in the last week, the Mexican earthquake. What have been your observations from a kind of alternative capital markets standpoint there, and have we got some more harder results that we can discuss?
Well, the earthquake in Mexico does look like it has impacted one of the bonds which was recently issued in Mexico, the Mexican government's Fonden transaction, which was issued to the World Bank. And looking at where the numbers stand today, in terms of the USGS's representation of that earthquake, we do expect there to be a loss to that particular transaction. Obviously things do change, and as more and more insight comes out and more details come in, that might move, but currently we are looking at significant loss to the Fonden transaction. There are other cat bonds out there which are exposed to the Mexican earthquake, but none of them materially enough that I can see that would demonstrate a loss to any other transactions.
Yeah, and thinking about some of the bonds that could be impacted from Irma, are there any ones that are set to default? Well,
I mean, as I'm sure you know, the Florida plays a significant part in the cat bond space, as well as the broader collateralized reinsurance space, and so I would expect there to be at least some very close calls if we don't see some defaults as is. We've done some analysis and looking at which of the bonds which are most likely to be affected, and those tally very closely with the prices of the secondary trading prices of those cat bonds out in the market, and so I would expect to see at least some level of default from some of the Florida-focused cat bonds, and it's relatively easy to see which ones those are, because we've also seen similar adjustments, I suppose, to the equity prices of the companies who've issued those bonds, and so those are able to follow each other relatively closely. So I would be amazed if by this time next week we don't have some good indications as to which of these bonds are likely to default and who's likely to need to gain recoveries from them.